The National Policy on Arbitration and Alternative Dispute Resolution 2024 could not have come at a better time. Nigeria and indeed Nigerians have lost monumental resources over the years due to lack of diligence and perhaps negligence in transactions. Also concerning is the few number of trade lawyers in the country and other experts, as well as no steep penalties for getting the country into avoidable disputes. And so this marks the beginning of a series of conversations we'll be having in the course of this year on arbitration and alternative dispute resolution. My name is Leah Baba today, and as always, it's nice to have you join me on The Policy with Leah. We'll begin straight up from the trends table.
Nigeria's gross domestic product (GDP) recorded a 3.84% increase in the fourth quarter of 2024, higher than the 3.46% recorded in the third quarter of 2024. The GDP report published by the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) hinged the performance of the GDP in the quarter on the services sector, which recorded a growth of 5.37% and contributed 57.38% to the aggregate GDP. The federal government, states and local government councils have shared 1.703 trillion naira, being January 2025 Federation account revenue. A statement by the Director of Press and Public Relations at the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Bawa Mokwa, disclosed that the revenue was shared at the February 2025 Federation Account Allocation Committee FAC meeting held in Abuja. It will be recalled that states boycotted the meeting earlier scheduled for last week until NNPC settles an estimated 1.7 trillion naira in revenues, which have been pending since the full removal of the petrol subsidy in November 2024. In Enugu State, the government is seeking to regulate house rent agency and legal fees, with a bill proposing a 10% cap already skating through its first reading in the State House of Assembly. The bill, sponsored by OK Mba, representing Kano East constituency, tagged Bill for a Law to Amend the Landlord and Tenant Law Cap 101 of Enugu State 2024, was introduced in response to complaints about exploitations by landlords. The International Air Transport Association IATA, in its annual safety report, has revealed that African airlines had the second highest number of plane crashes in 2024, recording 10 incidents. IATA also disclosed that the global aviation industry successfully transported 5 billion passengers worldwide on over 40 million flights, with 7 fatal accidents in 2024. The report also revealed that a decade ago, the 5-year average 2011 to 2015 showed 1 accident for every 456,000 flights. A Shanghai man has been defrauded of $28,000 after falling victim to a long-distance relationship with an AI-generated girlfriend identified as Ms. Jiang. Chinese state media CCTV said the scammers used generative artificial intelligence software to create realistic videos and still images of a young woman who they presented as the fictional woman, and the victim, identified as Mr. Liu, transferred nearly $28,000 to what he believed was his online lover's bank account.
And here's that policy conversation on alternative dispute resolutions and arbitration. And of course, we're taking the trade arm to the best of our ability. It's nice to have you join me.
Thank you very much, Leon.
Can we ever get enough of these conversations?
I'm not sure we're going to get enough of it as long as business activities continue to thrive. You must have inevitably, unfortunately, disputes arising from businesses, arising from commercial activities. And that's why the framers of laws brought in sanctions to say, if you go beyond the line, this is the rubit. This is the level of flexibility that you can enjoy, but beyond that, no, is the answer. You cannot go beyond a line that is drawn. And that's also the reason why you have, rules in all transactions. And of course, I think this takes us a bit back to the fact that here domestically, internally, we've been looking at adjudication, litigation as the only means of dispute resolution for quite a long time. But I think it was in 2023, just a year or so back, that we had the Arbitration, and Mediation Act 2023 that started looking at, the introduction of alternative dispute resolution into our lexicon, into our law books. And from here, we'll now begin to manage these and drive at the international level, step by step. And it might interest you to note that maybe the holy books, essentially the Christian book, the Holy Bible, I think somewhere in Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 or so, or 25, thereabout, it started talking about if you have an offense with your brother, settle it out before he drags you to the court. And then the court hands you over to the officer. The officer takes you to jail. And therefore, along the line, make sure you resolve the dispute. But unfortunately, here, before the recognition of alternative dispute resolution, all we had was litigation straight to the courts. That's new sanctions. That's number one. Number two, why this may not abate for now, in line with your question, is the fact that business is a continuum and it must continue. Number three is that there is this urge to get rich fast, which was not there yesterdays. This propensity to get rich now and now makes a lot of people move into quite a lot of dirty deals that do not recognize the agreements, that do not recognize the laws, that do not have to recognize the laid down procedure and even policies. And most people close their eyes against signed policies and procedures. Whatever the law says, they do not care, as long as that money is the target. And this has to do with, selfish ambitions. If you take a look at all the, problems that Nigeria has gone through of late in terms of the horrendous takeover of this, takeover of that, and then the tribunals out of the country, all of these are centered on individuals trying to get rich fast, individuals trying to make money at the expense of the government, of the people, of the states. And that's why the country now is plunged into the mess. The other part of it is that we have not also taken time to get ourselves enrolled, tutored into the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, whether that be at the level of individual business activities or at the multilateral level. And I can tell you, even at the WTO, the World Trade Organization level today, you have such mechanisms as conciliation, mediation, arbitration, negotiations, all of this before you head to, the direct litigation. And we had not, I'm not saying have, we had not gone into any space to understudy all of these things, to take time to get all ourselves inducted in all of this. There are few trade lawyers today, for instance, in the country.
Is it only Nigeria that is finding herself in these kinds of litigations outside had jurisdiction all the time, or there are other countries in this same league with us?
It's not that other countries are not having their fingers burnt in any of these, but it's also tagged on this same lane of selfishness, selfish ambitions, okay? And then the character of abandoning the state, abandoning the law, the laid down procedures of the state, and then going solo, sometimes tracking yourselves with parties that also want to ridicule the country and to reap from where they did not sow. Then at the multilateral level, I see also the low capacity in terms of mainstreaming the laid down procedures again at that level. And then in our laws as well, be it at the regional level, like we have the regional economic communities like ECOWAS, CEMAC, SADC, and all of that. And a few of them only recognizes alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. If you look at that template and see what applies at the international level, and then at the various multilateral, organizations, institutions, there is a wide gap where this is recognized over there, but here we do not seem to understand. And then at that level, at the international level, they even hook up, the laws are provided in a way that they hook up, they pick you as a person to deal with. Not just the country, but also the individuals that are involved in the matters. These are things that we also need to look at. I told you about the act. It's a repeal, rather, but then expand it. So if we have this now, students of law will begin to now understudy and come up with, the issues that have to do with alternative dispute resolutions. And by the way, all of these things are linked on trade, commercial activities. So how many lawyers do we have in Africa, for instance, that are trade lawyers? How many schools, law schools, universities studying law that are looking at these as principles of law, as areas of discipline of law? Just a few.
Did you encounter that while in school?
I encountered this, but at the master's level, at the postgraduate level, I was privileged to study trade law.
In Nigeria?
Not in Nigeria, unfortunately. That's the same thing I'm saying about.
Yes.
I'm talking about here. So I studied that in Germany, and I started looking at this, and that took me into trade law, globalization, then economic law, and all of that. So those jurisprudence began to expand the tentacles of operations that, look, you may commit a crime here, a malfeasance, and think you get away, but at the international level, this is exactly what the provisions are. We need to start expanding those tentacles. I also think that in line with online marketing and all of that, online transactions and online businesses, multiplying from every nook and cranny of the country, we also need to start sampling the effects, the implications of all of this in law, and then begin to expand the disciplines so that students will also begin to understand that this particular horizon is widening. Somebody commits a crime here and flies off and lives in Cameroon, and then the Interpol starts hunting. It may take some time. They get him. Based on which law are you going to try this fellow? International law, of course. Or we are talking about NLG now, the Nigerian liquefied natural gas and all of that. This is the template on the table, but the country is suffering it, and then they are taking off. And over there, Nigeria is spending money, bringing lawyers who are going to be flying in and out, going to the courts, defending who? Defending the country, the state, using state money, taxpayers' money as well, for what somebody had committed. One or two individuals have connived, conspired to deal with. It goes beyond this national, kind of disgrace. When some of these things happen, they should also be brought back here to face the reality of the law, face sanctions, those who are involved in all of this. Look at the disgrace that Nigerian, aircraft was held up, seized by a Chinese company, not the Chinese government, a company. That was perpetrated by 1 or 2, 3 individuals. What has happened? What will happen to those people? Nigeria has spent money defending herself. Nigeria has lost money with the capture of that aircraft, the seizure. Taxpayers' money. You are paying for what somebody else did. What are the consequences?
Okay. At what point during the negotiations or signing agreements level that one would need a lawyer?
Good. Right from the point of negotiations, you must have a lawyer. And this is one of the things that we are also teaching at the organizational level. We are teaching our own members who are in this buying and selling, importing from abroad. We have had a lot of cases here where, people write to us, members write to us and say, look, they sent money to 1, 2, 3 ABC Chinese company over there. In other cases, you also have people who bring in complaints and say, look, we have done everything possible. We have also tried to, write to them. We have done everything that we could do to sit down at the negotiating table. We cannot find a resolution. And what we do, we ask questions. Before you engaged in this agreement, did you involve a lawyer? And sometimes, funny enough, when you look at the content of what they wrote, it is so watery, so loose, that a man will think that because he has money, and then because of the speed to make that money immediately, he has punched a calculator. He feels that if I bring in these 10 containers, I'm making 20 billion. And then you rush off, sign every kind of dotted line. And at the end of the day, your fingers are burnt and you begin to cry back to the country, cry back to the organization. But if that was written clearly in black and white, before you jumped into the sea, before you jumped into the business, that would have been clear. That look, this is the responsibility of this person, this partner, this exporter that is bringing it to you, or this manufacturer over there. You see goods that are defaults in terms of their production, and then they load it over you. You must take them because your money is gone already. You've paid for it. Unfortunately, I've also been able to meet some embassies that are like shameless, and they will tell you that nothing concerns them. And one of them, looked at me in the face and said, "Look, after all, by the time your member went there, did he contact us?" Under the past administration, the Buhari administration closed the borders.
And people lost.
A lot of traders who went to borrow money from the banks were doing their business cross-border trade across the borders of West Africa, got their fingers burnt. Transporters, the same thing. Was there any compensation? No. Goods were lost. So where do we address all of this?
So what kinds of conversation are you having with policymakers, and of course looking at Nigerians who are in other jurisdictions who are not resident here? I'm sure you've had to do 1 or 2 mediations on their behalf. I can speak for one of our neighboring countries that we've seen some of the ambassadors there going to mediate. But right now, with this policy in place, what kinds of conversations are you having with them?
I had a discussion with the previous Minister of Trade, I don't want to mention him. And I said, look, this is what we are passing through. I even wrote a memo to that point, to that extent. I said, this is exactly what our people are passing through. And I have had discussions with the Nigerian Customs Service. And of course, their hands are tied. There's an extent to which they can go. I agree. I totally accept that. I also extended this discussion with the Ministry of Finance for you to understand where we're heading to. And I said, look, this is how many billions? And can I shock you? Nigeria is losing, as at the last count of what we aggregated, we have lost about $39 billion on all of these, what you call informal transactions, informal imports. Disputes arising from that. I know of a trader, a big-time trader, whose 141 containers are still hooked up over there. I know of one that had to send back 47 containers using his own money. The capital invested in the goods, gone. His own money to ship it back, stranded. His business now, stranded and eclipsed. Within the context of, attracting foreign investors, which, successive administrations try to play around with, it is the environment that attracts investments. And I say within all of these, and within the context of the fact that we need to review our own judicial system to effectively express herself within all of this, in the context of all of this. I said, can we begin to think of protecting our local investors before attracting foreign investors? Because there's it doesn't make sense. Losing billions on daily basis by the local investors, the traders you see here. And then you are now attracting every day, spending money, flying abroad, trying to attract those who will come and invest here. And like you said, I pioneered the issue of Nigerian traders versus Ghanaian government and their GIPC Act 47. The past administration of President Buhari set up an interministerial committee. All of us, we had to move down to Ghana. We stayed for a few days, negotiating a bilateral kind of treaty that will address all of this. Now, the administration is gone. That has not been completed. It's hanging. Based on what has been happening between Nigeria and South Africa, we are Nigerian investments. We are burnt, destroyed. And of course, you understand the xenophobic attacks and all of that, and the consequences. And I said, can we also come into that? And some time ago, I flew into Kenya. The same thing was trying to happen, and we, pulled it down a bit. It subsided. So these things will continue to happen because Nigerian traders have the potential to do well anywhere they are found. And I said, within now that we have the context of the AFCFTA, we need to really give our own traders protection. And by the way, if you look at all the traders in the entire continent, if you don't find Nigerian traders there in their markets, please look for something else to do. Just run away. Just run away. It will tell you that something is happening there that is not wrong. It's not complete. That market is not complete. And therefore, we have the potentials of even exporting whatever we need to export from here to that place. So it requires orientation in that regard. But first of all, orientation in the laws that will have to protect them so that they don't have also their fingers burned. So in answering that question again, regarding the advocacy that we've had, I've taken it to the Parliament, I've taken it to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I've taken it to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, I've taken it to, in fact, I've also had meetings with the CBN as at that point. Thank God because of one woman who is in the CBN now, is the Director of Monetary Policy, Madam Bala. She's the one that also took it up when we were discussing the EPA negotiations with the European Union. She's the one that raised the matter. Thank God for her. And I looked at it and I said, this is something that we need to look at. I think you have brought a subject matter that Nigerian government will have to kick up again.
Fortunately, I'm told we don't have any more time for these conversations. I must thank you, Doctor, for making out time for this conversation, and of course for throwing more lights to these conversations as we take them forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leon.
Yes. We move on to our education segment, Simplify This, and from there we take you to the local commodities market. And so we bet here, but don't forget that you can log on to our sister website. It is www.marketnigeriatv.com. We have all the market details and more there for you. Until we come away again, same time next week, don't forget that you should always follow us on our YouTube channel. It is at savanmediaservices.com. Leave your comments, questions, and suggestions because we need them to help us serve you better. This month, of course, is the month to celebrate women worldwide, and hope you're going to join the trend as well. My name is Leah today, saying have a beautiful weekend and God bless Nigeria.